Let me ask you this. Is it particularly bad in this country or is it bad in other countries? Do you have experience? Because this has been something I've been curious about is with other countries. I'm thinking of like the UK and some of those other countries. Is it better in other places in the world than it is here?
So I'll say this. This is the crazy thing. I've traveled all over the country doing this kind of work, training people. I'm actually going to Africa, Lord willing. Hopefully I don't get COVID or anything. But I'm actually scheduled to go to Africa in November.
Oh, cool.
To train some organizers on how to do organizing work around racial justice. And this is in Africa where they are the majority. But I'll say this, as a Black American, you get treated a lot better in other countries. I will say that, like that American passport in another country as a Black person, especially in like Asia and stuff, they think you Beyonce. You know what I mean? They don't see Black people, so they think all Black people that come to other countries you're rich, you're famous, you're somebody famous, right? Because who else Black which is within itself systemically inequitable, because in their mind they see all Black people as less than. And so when they do see a Black person in Dubai or places I've gone, Asia or, places like that, they think immediately like, who are you? You're somebody. Yeah. But there's racism all around the country. And it is this notion of anti-Blackness. Even if you go and look at the Hispanic and Latinx communities, Afro-Latinas, there's a whole movement around the Afro-Latinas who in Cuba and in Brazil and in all these other countries are being treated as less than because they are darker complected. It is it's something that people don't really acknowledge or talk about when we talk about racism. We just kind of, I think we have this archaic view of like somebody in a robe burning a cross in somebody's yard. Right. Throwing a cocktail in somebody's house. And racism doesn't look like that anymore. Racism looks like a young Black girl in elementary school rolls her eyes and her teacher suspends her because she has to have an attitude. That is systemic racism. Yes. Systemic racism now looks like white students being able to, parents being able to buy their kids into college, and Black students being, overlooked because only 3 Black people can go to these prestigious colleges. Racism looks different. No, KKK members may not be wearing white hoods and robes, burning crosses in your yards, but they're damn for sure wearing judges' robes. They're damn for sure wearing police uniforms. They're definitely in the State General Assembly. You know what I mean? Yep. They're definitely the ones who are making decisions about our bodies. They're definitely in Big Farm. So it's like, I think we have to assimilate people to what modern day racism looks like because it's subconscious. Sometimes you don't even realize it. Yep.
For the discussion that you were having with your ex-boyfriend, he was white, and I'm just thinking of, let's say he did have, we don't need to like hear about actually what he went through, but let's just assume, for example, you have a situation where a white guy came from nothing, and he didn't have a history in slave trade or anything like that, came from nothing, absolutely poor, let's just even say no college education, just kicked out in this world. You're still saying he has an advantage because of the history of the country and this 400-year head start. Okay. So, what would you be in favor then? How would you right that wrong, would you say?
Reparations.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask.
Catch me up to where you are. And it's always difficult because even during slavery, like a small percentage of white folks owned slaves. But the fact that they weren't Black gave them an advantage, and that advantage made them or gave them the privilege to see Black people as less than. Most of the times, the most racist white people are the poorest white people. Most times it's not your affluent.
That's an interesting point.
And it's because when you're in poverty, and I'm pretty sure you guys can attest to this, when you're in a situation where you feel hopeless, even in church sometimes, and I hate when I hear pastors say stuff like, well, it could be worse. You could be living on the street like the homeless people. And to me, that's the wrong way of seeing things, because my misfortune should not be measured against somebody who is less misfortunate just to make me feel good or feel better.
Yep.
And that is what we have in society. You have people who are poor and white, but it's like, well, at least you're not poor and black. And that has been perpetuated through every system in this country, education. I mean, even children do it. And it's become so prevalent and so ingrained in us that we don't even realize that we're doing it when we're doing it. So I don't think it's necessarily that a poor white person, you know, doesn't have to work hard or that they just had it handed to them. But there is this notion that if you're black, you're less than. And so even though you may have started off at the same, you know, playing field as me as a white man, you may have been poor, you may have lived, you know, you may have lived in the housing projects. And white people that live in the housing projects, the fact that you're white gives you an advantage because I'm automatically seen as less than.
Yeah, and by very nature, you mentioned if you're poor and white, you might think, well, at least you're not poor and black, which just speaks to the exact. I know some would. I've heard this a time or two, and it wasn't necessarily from. Well, I have heard this that the one of the areas that people try to distract in this country is from the wealthy and the poor. And the wealthy try to protect themselves from coming into the common conversation or the popular conversation by juxtaposing basically poor white people and poor black people, or even just white people and black people against each other, because they're trying to keep the attention on race and not on poor versus wealthy. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think that you're absolutely right, which is why we have tons of white allies and supporters who follow our work, but we have to be unapologetic in the conversation so that they can really understand the black experience. Therefore, they know how to engage. But I agree. I think that there is a small percentage of people who want to retain power and power in the sense of money and influence for themselves. And the best way to do that is to watch the people on the ground kill each other. Like, I mean,
exactly.
That's art of war 1-on-1.
Yes.
Turn your enemies against one another and they'll kill each other off and you'll just remain in power.
Yes.
So I do agree. But the hard part is on both sides, black and white, particularly on the white side, people have been brainwashed for generations and centuries to believe that these people are the reason why I don't have health care. These people are the reason why I don't have good jobs or why jobs in my county are closing. It's because, you know, people are coming from Mexico and they're stealing all the jobs. But really, it's because companies like Amazon are putting everybody out of jobs. And the reason why they're able to do that is because the politicians who are telling you that these people are actually making money off the side to be able to keep them in position. So it's kind of like, you know, how do you even begin to have a conversation with someone that just hates you solely based off the color of your skin?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.